Long days, pleasant nights, and welcome to Kingslingers, a Doof Media podcast journeying through Stephen King's Dark Tower series and beyond. I am your host, Constant Reader Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, he's just grilling up some homemade hamburgers. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going this week, Matt?
Everybody want a burger? I got a lot of fresh, juicy burgers coming right off the grill.
Hey, what's that taste in there?
It's a little bit of thyme.
Did I tell you I had this cookbook my wife and I were cooking from one time for a while, and this woman was obsessed with thyme, and she would put like so much thyme in every single one of her meals. It was really, truly absurd.
Yeah, I feel like every recipe is always telling me to add thyme to things, and I never have thought to myself, like, you know what really makes this dish? The thyme. And yet I continue to do it if the recipe says to do it. So I don't know.
Here's the thing about me is I know how to cook, but only specifically if there's a recipe in front of me telling me exactly how much of everything to put in it.
Yeah.
And I will not stray from it. I will not experiment. I will just do that exact thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, how's the strychnine? I mean,
I was about to go on a whole rant about I think I'm going to stop myself because it's the first 30 seconds of the show.
Yeah, that would be a bad precedent.
We'll talk about this at another time, because this week we have to talk about Mr. Mercedes. It is our third episode covering Chapter 4 of Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes, titled Poison Bait. Things start to get serious between Bill and Janie as he continues to poke and prod at the Mercedes killer. And that doesn't mention the poking and prodding he's doing of her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, also Brady kills his mom. So
yeah,
there's that. Matt, what did you think of this chapter?
So is this going to be one of those books where Brady just like eventually just kills himself in some mishap, and Hodges is like, well, I guess that sorted itself out, and that's just the end of the book? Because Brady seems like kind of a fuck up is my point.
Yeah. I don't know how you accurately predicted the end there, but you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the book, folks.
Yeah. I don't know if people knew the win condition of Kingslingers, but if I correctly predict the ending, we just stop. Yeah. Yeah,
it would have been wild if episode 2 of the Gunslinger, you're just like, I think I figured this thing out, and we just had to shut it all down. It'd be really sad.
Yeah, but you know, them's the rules. But no, more seriously, a lot happens this week, actually. Like, that was one thing I was blown away with about while going through the script, doing my part of the script, is like, whoa, all of this happened in just this week's reading. I mean, we'll get to it as we go, obviously, but there's just a lot of plot happens. It's just a really good week of reading. Like, I think that's one thing this book has going for it, is it really keeps up a good clip.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively short book for King. You know, we've reached the halfway point of our episodes. We're doing 6 episodes on this. Only 5 of those episodes are the book itself. So we've only got 2 more weeks of reading after this one. So it's moving quite along. And yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot to cover here. There's a lot going on. It doesn't sit with any of this stuff, but it gives us, I think, a proper time to really understand and live with these characters. I love this book so much, surprisingly. Like, I don't know how surprising that is. I am perhaps enjoying my time with it more than I thought I would be. Which is not to say I didn't think I'd like it, but it's been delightful to read this book for me a whole lot.
Yeah, I feel the same.
All right, you want to just jump into it? I don't think we have any announcements or anything going on this week. Just more kingslinging.
Let's do it. Let's crush it.
Let's do it. Let's get into Poison Bait. Our chapter picks up right where we left off last week, where Brady Hartsfield, angry at Bill's dismissal, is buying some Go for Go to poison Jerome's dog. What's important here, Matt, is we're once again seeing the very careful, calculated Brady Hartsfield, right? This is a guy who he won't even buy his own poison here. He's not going to risk it. He's got this alternate identity he's created that buys things online and it has things shipped to, so he can safely keep himself divorced from this other persona, this other character. we're doing this, I think, very specific here in this moment to build this up so we can directly contrast it with Brady's rashness later in the chapter, to kind of set a baseline so we can demonstrate very clearly that Bill is indeed getting to him very, very effectively, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, it's interesting because there are parts of his character that are calculating, but I mean, we see how deeply anxious and paranoid he is, and I think that's how he was able to get away with the Mercedes
Mm-hmm.
massacre in the first place. Um, but what he has going against him is he's actually not fundamentally a cool and calculating man.
Yeah.
He's an emotionally driven man, driven by these compulsions, and it seems like, as you say, Hodges prodding him, or even I think just his own nature sort of goading him into taking these actions. He's taking increasing risks. Doesn't really matter how meticulous you are if you are compelled to keep doing extremely risky things. So I think, you know, just he's gonna his risk taking behavior is gonna catch up with him eventually. But we
Yeah.
do see, I think, believably why it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. King also takes some time here, Matt, to make sure we understand what strychnine is and what strychnine poisoning actually looks like. And I think this is, once again, very specific because we're defining this here. So when it happens to Brady's mom near the end of this chapter, we already understand what this means and the cruelty of it, right? I love the text, like, talks about it, the vomiting, the convulsions, the spine, the backbone turning hard and arching and sometimes snapping, and then the eventual asphyxiation. And at the end of this paragraph here is the neural pathways tasked with running air to the lungs from the outside would just give up. Brady can hardly wait. And I think this is one of those lines that, like, reading this, kind of knowing where all the stuff is going to end up at the end of the chapter, like, makes it sting a bit more here. And I think that's what King is, once again, doing a really good job of setting all this stuff up so it's going to pay off by the end of the chapter.
Absolutely. Yep. I think one thing I want to be upfront about here at the beginning of the episode before we go into how things unfold is, like, I did not see the end of this coming. I did not see the idea that his mom would end up being the one taking the poison coming at all. I think partly because Brady is seemingly aware of the risk, and he takes what he thinks are reasonable precautions, and so you sort of feel like the book has given you permission to not worry about that. Like, it would be one thing if he just, like, casually put it in the fridge in the house, then you would be like, uh-oh. But it's like, no, he thought about it. He put it in the outside fridge. And he was just mistaken, right? He just overlooked something.
But isn't that, like, the fact that we spend the time to mention that he puts in the outside fridge, he hides it behind, like, the text takes time to lay all this out, where there was no part of your mind that went, oh, uh-oh.
I mean, I think specifically, I was just like, okay, well, he's taking care of it, I don't know. I mean, the answer is no, I did not. I was like, okay. I think part of me is also just like, oh, we're already getting rid of the mom character, like, there's
Yeah.
no, and it's not like I'm incredibly disappointed, because I wasn't super looking forward to several more incest scenes. So it's just as well, I suppose. But no, I did not see it coming. And I wanted to ask, are you in the habit of just cooking up random baggies of meat that you find in the fridge that you don't know the source or age or species of?
Um, no. I would probably, if I were in his mother's shoes, not do that. But
Uh-huh.
there's plenty of other things his mother does that I would probably decline to do.
Uh-huh.
So, her choice making is already pretty questionable. She's also clearly intoxicated. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I was kind of trying to put myself in her shoes. Like, you get hungry, oh, food. Yeah, when it comes to meat, though, I if that sucker's not sealed and I don't know where it came from, I'm probably not touching it. Like, the only way this would work is if, like, there's been a pre-established, like, thing between my wife and I where,
Mm-hmm.
oh, she bought meat and this is where she puts it, and she would throw it out if it was bad. But even then, it's very hard to it's very hard to see a situation where this happens. But I think that's part of. I mean, honestly, what this is, and the reason I like this so much is because Brady is a person who is very convinced in his own intelligence and is very convinced that he has a good, solid read on people. Mm-hmm. And he's right sometimes. And then he's wrong in really big ways. I mean, I think his calculation on Bill Hodges is wrong. And that's kind of why we're seeing what's happening with Bill right now is that he observed this guy and he made a conclusion as to what type of person he was and how he could manipulate him, and he was wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing happens with his mother. Is he's convinced he knows the type of person his mother is. He's got her pegged. He understands her behavior, and so the precaution he takes here is a sufficient one. But he's wrong. That is what continually gets him in trouble. So I like how this plays off of his general incompetence, which is, it's so fun to talk about this because we talked about in the very first episode, the fun of knowing the murderer in these type of stories is seeing the cat and mouse game between the two characters. And it's not that cat and mouse game doesn't exist here in this book. It does. And it's still delightfully fun. But in this case, the mouse is stupid and lucky. Right. And so it is a interesting kind of wrinkle on the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I think also the mouse is an interesting character and human. Sure. Yeah. One thing I was thinking is like, it's funny. We talked about this last week, how even just stating facts about a character can make it sound like you're advocating for them. And it's like, and maybe so the thing about Brady is like he's responsible, he's resourceful, he is intelligent. He's just not nearly as intelligent as he thinks. Yeah. And he's kind of got things put together. And but like the funny sort of contrast here is like it wouldn't occur to him that someone would eat mystery fridge meat because he probably wouldn't, right? Mm-hmm. But it's been established repeatedly that his mom is slovenly and careless, and she would, and that's the step that he fails to take, is the step of like stepping into someone else's shoes and imagining what they might do. So makes sense. Yeah,
I like that as like a lack of empathy might be the wrong word, but like we've talked about this guy being either a psychopath or a sociopath, right? And mm-hmm. yet he blends in very well. But I think the things that he's missing as far as being able to understand humans and human behavior is the type of things that are getting him in trouble here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So while Brady is climbing the stairs back up, he stops and thinks for a second about what he's considering doing here. He doesn't think about what we talked last week, Matt, which is that, hey, if Bill is taking the time to message me, maybe he's just lying and trying to work me up. He doesn't go that far, but he does think that, hey, poisoning this dog might bring heat on him, and more heat than he wants at this point. So it's interesting because like we talk about how he's like not actually as smart as he thinks he is, but in this moment he does like have the consideration that like, oh, wait a minute, this is stupid. I need to be more careful. It's just ultimately he doesn't, right?
Yeah. I think we've said the same thing multiple ways, but it is actually just evil destroys itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where like he is smart and I called him responsible a second ago. Like he's got the makings of a successful man who could have lived a successful life, but the part of him that is evil is the part of him that is self-destructive, that is irrational. Yeah. It's going to irrationally push him toward taking these actions that are going to blow up in his face. And if he doesn't take this action to poison the dog, it'll just be something else next week. Mm-hmm. And then that's fundamentally what it is. I mean, that's why it's like frustrating watching him, because not that I feel like I'm rooting for Brady, but sometimes you feel like you're rooting for the villain in some stories, right? Like it's fun to root for competent people, even if they're bad. I won't say I'm rooting for Brady, but there have definitely been stories where I've been rooting for the villain in some regard, or at least if not rooting for them to like win, at least rooting for them to like surmount their thing that is making them a villain, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, and I also just think seeing a person make the choice that's going to end up damning them, like whether you want them to be damned or not, will have a specific kind of emotional reaction, even if you don't particularly like them. And I think that's the case with Brady. Like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, you idiot, you dummy, you dummy. Like,
right.
just watching this guy get played like a fiddle by Bill is delightful on the one hand, and also like, oh man, you dummy.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Really? You think
Yeah.
he's so smart? Come on.
No, I think that's it. Yeah, I was struggling to articulate like how you can be frustrated to watch a guy fail even though you want him to fail. It's a very interesting spot that we're in.
I do think if there's just like this innate desire to see in the stories people succeed. I mean, because like this happens all the time in like anti-hero tales, right? Where you end up liking the guy. Brady's not that instance, but I think you were talking about this. You end up liking the person, you're rooting for them, even if you take a step back rationally and go, wait a minute, wait, why do I want this person to win? Like a story about a character trying to get away with murder, and they're, you find yourself being brought along on it, and like, yeah, you can. Oh God, he's gonna get away with it. Come on, just we're so close. I think this is like an innate storytelling thing where just like we just grab onto them. I mean, for the same reason why listing facts, like you said, makes us seem sympathetic. Like, we are just empathy machines ready to attach ourselves to anything we see to develop empathy. We're like, okay, here's why this happened, because I have Twitter open up on my other monitor, and for some reason there's an Alien Romulus ad playing on there. So I almost just said we're face huggers of empathy, where we attach ourselves to the face of anything we can feel empathetic about. That's why my brain's doing that. I just want you to know. I'm closing Twitter now. Go away, Twitter.
That's some good free association right there. Yeah. But
that's Brady.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's just like rooting for the teenage supervillain to take over the city. Even though if you stood back from it, you would be like, what?
That's a good example.
The Worm, the story we've talked about before. That's a good example. And I think this, I'm reminded of like, not that Aaron Sorkin invented this concept of writing, but I think he's done a lot to popularize the idea of like the heart of storytelling being intention and obstacle. And even if you don't agree with the character's intention, you can understand the character's intention. And then when they encounter an obstacle, you feel that as a kind of frustration. And that's true, I think, regardless of like what side you're on, actually.
Yeah. No, I agree with that for sure. All right. So it's time for Brady to, go release some tension. So he goes to his mommy and he says, "Mommy, I have a headache. Hey, Matt. How you feeling about the incest?"
Well, I mean, so I guess the primary emotion that all of this brings up, other than just sort of being repelled by it, is deepening our sense of what an unhealthy upbringing Brady has had.
Yeah.
We've talked a bit, I think we've talked a bit every week of this book, actually, about how like it never quite rises to the level of really feeling true empathy for Brady. Like, we're never like, oh, this poor kid. But this was one of the moments where I was like, okay, if this is the way his life is, and this is the way his mom is, you kind of gotta feel bad for the guy a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a type of thing where we don't actually get to see like how long this has been going on for. But the implication is quite a long time. And when did it start? Well, that is incredibly inappropriate. And I mean, while it's like, the interesting thing about him is this sexual attraction to his mother that we had defined for us in the previous week. Like, Brady was aware of the wrongness of it, right? Like, it's not like he has any doubts in this. He is fully aware that this is wrong and disgusting, and he tries as hard as he can to resist it. Like he's looking at his mother's body. Ugh, it feels gross to say this. And acknowledging his attraction to it, but then he deals with that by going off on his own and taking care of it by himself, right? Because he
Mhm.
knows this is wrong and disgusting. And yet we find ourselves in this horrible relationship here where she is helping him with that. And like it's just really fucked up. And it's
Yeah.
like she's the parent, she's the adult, I mean, he's an adult now, but I do think it's safe to say that this started prior to his
Yeah.
adulthood, right? That this is something that has happened for a very long time.
I think the subtext of the way it's written is like, this is something that happens often, and is sort of part of a I don't know if I'm using this word quite right, but a sort of codependency between them. I understand. I've come to understand that word doesn't mean the thing that everyone uses it to mean, so I'm always leery using it. But anyway,
Codependency.
yeah.
What else could it mean?
It has like a specific psychology meaning that isn't the meaning that I feel like everybody just uses.
Interesting.
But whatever. Let's pretend you all know what I mean. Like there's just nothing in that chapter that indicates that any of this is like new or surprising, and is just part of a pattern with them. So
sure. I guess we should say like the comparison point here is Norman Bates and Mrs. Bates, right? It is not the same thing, but it is similar.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about that connection as well, and then I realized that I think I've only seen Psycho once, and I don't actually even remember what their relationship was. But yes, I think that's one of the associations that we're meant to make with these characters.
Yeah, I mean, spoilers for Psycho is we don't, in the context of the film, ever get to actually see Mrs. Bates. She's been dead for a very long time, and it's just Norman dressing up like his mother. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some stuff there for sure.
Yeah.
But no indication we're doing that here. But I feel like we're pinging off this general idea of the psychopaths' rather fucked up relationship with their mother.
Yes, and King is a great one for matricide, obviously.
Yeah,
and
so
not just matricide, but also weird feelings about one's mother. That's not a totally new concept in King's fiction.
So I guess what you're saying, Matt, and I think people should quote you on this, is Brady Hartsfeld and Roland Deschain equal in goodness. Equally good characters.
You're the one who said it there, Scott.
No, I'm just paraphrasing your argument.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was a few seconds ago that I said that, so that now it sounds like what I said. So yeah, I think I did say that.
I mean, is there really a difference between running over a baby and letting a child fall to his death?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Yep. There we go. We did it. Roland Deschain. Mr. Mercedes. All right. So as we continue to psychoanalyze Brady, Matt, I found this part interesting. This is the following morning as he's making breakfast. It says, Brady is as incapable of letting the phone ring as he is of giving up his muddled and ever-changing plans for some grand act of destruction. I love this on both the incredibly insane part of Brady kind of constantly thinking about killing a person he's talking to, doing this great act of killing. We talked about killing the president and Brad Pitt last week, but then the other part of it is just like, I couldn't possibly let my phone ring. It's just like this little mundane bit of data on him I just found kind of delightful.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's one of the funny things about him is he is, like I said, responsible, and like he's fastidious. He has this sense of propriety, which is clashes or just works in an interesting way with his other personal characteristics. But yeah, I like it. And also I just like the way that the narrative sort of steps back from his point of view. Like I think very often in this book, we've been using what you'd call, close third person, where we're sort of melded with the thoughts of the character. But then every once in a while, we'll step back, we'll get a more objective, more external point of awareness. It happens a lot with Brady. It also happens somewhat with Hodges, actually. And it's an interesting little quirk of this book, actually.
Yeah, no, I like that. We're gonna have a lot more to say about Brady. I want to talk about this call with this customer here a bit, Matt. So basically, he's got a call. A customer needs help at his home, and Brady heads there. The piece of information I think is the most interesting for the plot here is that we learn that Olivia Trelawney was also one of Brady's customers, and so maybe some more data points as to how he was able to infiltrate her life so much are coming here. But I also really liked this little bit. He heads to the home of this woman named Paula Rollins, and we get this. Oh, Brady, thank God. She sounds like a woman being rescued from a desert island after 3 days without food and water. But he hears the little pause before she says his name and sees her eyes flick down to read it off his shirt, even though he's been here half a dozen times. I just point this out, Matt. This quote specifically. Like we rag on Brady deservedly a whole lot, and he is super dumb, but he's also at times extremely observant. Like I think sometimes he's like just smart enough to be observant and to know how to manipulate people. I also think the woman that works for the ice cream company that he like manipulates and like knows she has a crush on him and is using that despite the fact that he is horribly cruel to her in his head. Like he has some level of it's kind of, it reminds me of like detective shit, of the fact that he noticed here that there was a slight pause and her eyes flicked down, and he caught all that. Shows that he is observant, he is aware, and he does read people well. It's just like he reads them just well enough that he assumes he's better at it than he thinks he is, and that's what gets him in trouble.
Yeah, right. Or he overplays his hand, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting scene in so many ways. It's funny because you could almost call it a throwaway scene just based on how it's like it's just a narratively functional scene, but I think it's more than that. So one thing to notice is I think we're doing more of this class commentary, wealth haves and haves nots commentary, because this is a woman who repeatedly calls tech support so many times that he's been to her house like 6 times, and is obviously wealthy enough to do that and wealthy enough to afford maid service, which is why her computer is unplugged, like specifically, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like this, really drawing this picture of this world of people who have no idea what they're doing. They tend to be older, of course. People have no idea what they're doing, and then who sort of like totally rely on the the underclass of people who do all of the real work. And then in comes Brady taking advantage of that structure that has been built. He slips right into it, and it facilitates him, right? It's like his camouflage. I think it works perfectly with this, because it also is like kind of a delightful reveal. This moment is like a cool reveal, because you asked me last week, I think you specifically asked me like, so how is Brady able to spy on Trelawney? And I think I didn't really have an answer, which is which in retrospect feels stupid, because it's like, well, we know that he has this job where he can use technology, but I guess the idea of him doing house calls had not necessarily been introduced yet, at least as far as I remember. But so the reveal, when I say reveal, I mean like we saw that he spies on Hodges in his role as the ice cream man, and now we see that he spies on Trelawney using the guise of his other job. And once again, I just think it's really interesting how we're tying all of this to this idea of like economic disparity, and the fact that Brady is continually using his legitimate employment as a way of facilitating his crimes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's something like Brady more than anything wants to go unnoticed, and he finds it very easy to do so in a world where people of his economic status are generally ignored by those people of high status. Like this woman doesn't even remember his name, as you said. Like he exists as kind of like the working class that is just there to do the stuff we need, but we're not going to actually pay it. We don't acknowledge your personhood, essentially. And he's able to live and thrive in that environment because he wants to be unnoticed. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think you're right. That is a cultural commentary on economic status for sure.
Yep.
And I think playing into that, one thing that I thought was really interesting here is what he says. So he's working on fixing the computer, which, as you said, has just been unplugged. And she, of course, didn't notice it. Actually, the fun fact here, Matt, is that this is the one room she doesn't let her maid clean because she's so untrustworthy of the help that she wouldn't do that. And so she cleans in this room by herself. So it's her herself that unplugged the computer. But I do like Brady's implication here that if he told her legitimately what the problem was, she would probably fire the maid anyway, because just the type of person she is. But anyway, what he says here, as he's kind of fixed the computer, so he's just kind of thinking right now. And it says, he didn't get away with mowing down those job-seeking idiots at City Center, only to be arrested for stealing a pair of diamond earrings he wouldn't have any idea how to get rid of. And I just find it really interesting, the phrase job-seeking idiots, right? Like, as we've established, Brady is working class. Brady does not have a lot of money. He is working two jobs, both to help him in his deeds of murdering and torturing people, but also we're kind of told to make ends meet. He's supporting himself and a mother who is not working, and neither job, it seems, pays very well on its own. And yet, these people that he murdered are of the same economic status as him, essentially. Like, they're people, a position he could very well see himself in, especially since his main job is at a failing Circuit City Best Buy store, right? Like, I just that he has kind of pushed those people, job-seeking idiots, into a class of their own that are not of his status, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, well, Scott, he has two jobs. He's much better at having jobs than they are, clearly. So
that's true. He's double the better.
Yeah, he's so far away from being like them. No, I like what you're saying here. I think part of it is just his reflexive diminishing and othering and distancing from everyone. I mean, he has a little epithet for everyone or every group, right? Like, I think it's funny. I think pretty much every time he's thought about someone of another race, he's made it racist. But it's like, don't take me too literally here, but it's like, I don't even think he's racist. I think he's just a misanthrope of the highest possible order. And so every time he thinks of a human being, he just like tries to make it a negative, painful, insult of whatever kind he can manage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like there needs to be a reason to be racist, because I don't actually think that, but it does certainly seem like he's not specifically racist for any specific reason to any specific group. It's everyone. It's I think you're spot on there. Yeah.
Right.
So the computer fixed, Brady hops onto Debbie's umbrella and composes a message back to Bill. One thing, Matt, I wanted to point out here that I think was really interesting, that I never realized it until I was looking through this chapter, is when Brady writes a message to Bill, we get to read the message as Brady composes it. But then each time Bill responds to Brady, King does this thing where he holds back the content of the message until Brady actually reads it. It's not until Brady opens the message that we get to see what Bill wrote. But every time Brady writes the message, we get to see it right away. I think that's a really interesting choice. And I think it's intentional, and we can maybe get into why that is, but I'm curious kind of your reaction to that.
I mean, one funny thing is it almost suggests that Brady is closer to being the main character than Hodges, simply because we see more of his perspective, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's you're totally right. It hadn't occurred to me until now. But it's just as much Brady's novel as it is Hodges' novel.
Yeah.
And I get another thing that is just now occurring to me is the novel is not called Hodges, PI. It's called Mr. Mercedes. It's named after the killer. It's named after this guy. So maybe it's funny when I started saying that he was more the main character, I was kind of being a little tongue in cheek, and now I'm like, well, no, he's the main character. He's in some sense the most interesting character. Not that Hodges isn't an interesting and dynamic character, but like it's fun to watch this, monster go about his mad errands, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I'm pushing back against this, because it's not that I disagree, but like Hodges has his arc. It's not like he's just hanging out static in the story. He's definitely changing too.
Totally agree. They both do, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, I agree with you. And I think for here, like in the predator prey relationship, Hodges is fully the predator at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why I think King has structured these things this way is because both the writing of Brady's messages and the receiving of Bill's messages only specifically matter from Brady's perspective, right? Like nothing Brady is saying to Bill at this point is actually having like the desired effect on Bill. It's not working the way Brady wants it to.
Right.
In fact, many times it's having the exact opposite effect of that.
Yep.
And so by structuring it this way, like you are putting the reveal of the text and the content of the messages in the point of view that matters most to it, which is like seeing Brady's state of mind when he writes the messages and seeing Brady's state of mind when he reads the messages is more important than seeing Bill's like actual writing out of the message, right? Like, and it's not like I want to be clear here. It's not that we don't essentially know what Bill is writing sometimes. It's just that the text of the message itself is never told to us in a Bill point of view section. It is always told to us in a Brady point of view section. So it's just putting the emphasis on the right syllable, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, I think that's one of King's strengths is like an instinctive understanding for where that emphasis would be most interestingly placed for dramatic effect. So a second ago, you kind of did the thing. You kind of did the thing, Scott, that always happens in the book, where whenever somebody goes to Debbie's Blue Umbrella, they never visit debbiesblueumbrella.com. They always hop under or peek under or take a peek, take a look under, or some verb or verb phrase that is never just using the website. This is pretty consistent that King will use like a slightly different phrase every single time. I just thought that was kind of charming.
Yeah, I mean, he like I wonder if this is a post finishing like editing thing where you're like, oh, I said he went to the website 20 times. I need to clean this up and make it more interesting. But I agree with you. I did notice that he's using cute phrases for it.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, so we're back with Bill, who has just finished reading the latest message from Merc Kill, which like I know that stands for Mercedes Killer, Matt, but like knowing more about what we know about Brady now, I think Merc Kill just specifically feels like such a freaking Brady username to give himself.
Yeah, it does.
One thing we didn't message is in the message that Brady shoots to him. It despite all the careful planning, which the message that he sends to Bill, Brady is kind of losing it, but he does take time to specifically write the message in the manner that he's written the other messages, be consistent with like the throwing and red herrings of the text that he's done in the past. And despite all the attempts there, Bill still gets something from this message, right? He learns that basically Brady says, keep like something about, I didn't actual copy the message, but like keep watching all those reality TV shows or something. It just basically this confirmation that Brady has indeed been watching Bill. He suspected he did, but he tells him in a message that now he 100% knows Brady has been driving by and watching him. And so it allows Bill to kind of have a plan of attack here. And so he goes out and starts to canvass the neighborhoods to see if he can get any hits on suspicious cars that have been in the neighborhood frequently. He stops with Mrs. Melbourne first, who turns out to be a bit crazy. Well, sort of, Matt, because in the middle of her crazy rambling, she says, "I check on that ice cream man too. This spring, it seems like he's always around. Do you suppose Loeb's Ice Cream checks out the people they hire to drive those trucks? I hope so, because that one looks suspicious. He might be a Peterist."
Uh,
So that's fun, right? Like this is again the what the structure of the story allows us to do is have the kind of crazy unhinged neighbor point to the exact person that Bill should be investigating, and we get to watch him dismiss it as the ramblings of a crazy woman.
Yeah, it is fun. I think it's really interesting and unusual how often the book does this sort of thing. And I think it's meant to be frustrating because we have this overwhelming dramatic irony. We know exactly what Hodges wants to know, and we see him pass over that knowledge. And this is I feel like maybe the third time that like the ice cream man has been brought to his attention as a thing that sort of sticks out.
Yeah.
And he's passed over it, and it seems like an unusual amount of our character, like for as smart as he is, right? Like this isn't an intelligence thing. This is just him not picking up on something
Yeah.
where like he kind of would have no reason to. Like it's almost like the ice cream man hasn't done anything particularly weird, is the truth, except
Yeah.
he is factually driving around the neighborhood constantly. So
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, I don't know if you caught this, but a little bit later in the chapter, there's a moment where I can't remember exactly what it is, but Bill is reminded of his conversation with Mrs. Melbourne.
Yeah.
And the text specifically says like, and something in that conversation pinged off of him in a way he couldn't recall in the moment. And you're just like, oh, that's what it was. You were like, there's something in your brain firing about the ice cream man, but you're not thinking about it. And that is part of that frustration I think you're feeling, for sure.
I mean, I think so. I think what we're doing is we're setting up, right, for like a moment later in the story, which we haven't gotten to yet, where it does click. And you know, very often in sort of detective stories or thrillers in general, more broadly, the character will realize the thing they need to realize, but it's like almost too late, or it's like it's a time. I mean, I think my favorite example is Clarice going to Buffalo Bill's house and realizing while she's standing there that she's in Buffalo Bill's house. You know, that's so like that for my money, that's the best example of the trope ever. But that kind of feels like what we're setting up here.
Yeah, and I think the fun of it in that prediction is like, okay, if this is what I think is going to happen, eventually it's going to click. What is it that's going to make it click, right? What event, what thing in the story is going to happen that finally makes his brain complete the circuit that it's gotten so close to completing? That's part of the fun of these books, for sure.
I agree.
I wanted to talk about this other thing too. As he walks back to his house, Hodges thinks another thing Hodges is discovering about retirement: his neighbors have stories and personalities. Some of them are even interesting. We talked about this last week, Matt, where I kind of posed the question to you of like, outside of this case, if this case is solved and either goes his way or doesn't go his way, what does Bill's life look like after this, right? Like that he was obviously in retirement, depressed and suicidal. And this case has given him something to live for again. And so it's like, okay, well, what does his life look like if this case goes away, though? Is he going to go right back to that chair? And I like this moment as King saying like, oh, let's throw some breadcrumbs here of like Bill perhaps discovering what a normal life would look like. Hey, I have neighbors and they have personality and they're interesting people, actually. And maybe we could hang out occasionally and not constantly be a cop at all times. It's just little breadcrumbs here, I think.
Yeah, and he's using his skill set to kind of protect the community. He's really becoming a member of this community. I think you're right.
Yeah, in a way that he definitely hadn't before, right? And I love that like none of that's explicitly stated. again, I'll repeat this. We don't know why he and his wife have divorced. We can make assumptions based on what we know about him and what we know about these type of detective stories. And we also see the way his neighbors react to them. It's clear he hasn't hung out with them at all, if ever. Like, you think having like a cop in the neighborhood would be like, oh, we're safe now because like we've got a cop in our neighborhood and he'll make sure nothing bad happens around here. And it's very clear that that is not the case with Bill, but it could be.
Yeah.
And then I think the other side of this coin is the thing that happens next, right? Because immediately having this feeling like, maybe there's some contentment in this future. He goes back in his house. He sees a message waiting for him from Pete. Pete says he has some big news for him. And Bill immediately assumes that the big news must be that Pete has caught the Mercedes killer. And one of the first things he says is, without Mr. Mercedes, things will go back to what they were. Afternoon TV and playing with his father's gun. So it's like, on the one side, we have like, oh, there's this interesting for me path to some sort of contentment in my life. And on the other side, it's like, well, if this goes away, I guess I'm going to just be suicidal again.
Yeah.
I think really interesting how these things play off each other.
Sure. Yeah. I think it reminds us of the stakes, because the stakes are not necessarily just, are we going to catch the Mercedes killer? The stakes have a lot more to do with, is Hodges going to find some meaning, some purpose, some way to continue his life, even after he has captured this guy or killed him, whatever we're going to do. Yeah.
So he's kind of waiting to hear back from Pete, and when the phone rings, instead of Pete, it's Janie saying that her mother's mind might have cleared up, and if he wants to go out to see her today, they could go. So that's kind of where we're heading next from here.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll just comment once again. It's amazing how much ground we cover this week, because this is one point I got here in the script and I was like, oh, we haven't even met her yet. And then by the end of this week's reading, we're like at her funeral, and it just feels like a really impressive clip.
Yeah. I mean, we also go from him meeting Janie to him in a full-blown relationship with her essentially in the course of this week's reading too. Yeah, no, things are moving very, very quickly here for sure.
But it's not like it feels rushed. Like that's why it surprised me. It was only when I looked at the script that I realized how much had happened. It wasn't like at the time I was like, whoa, we're really rushing through things. It at the time felt well paced. I just think this is a great example of economical pacing, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. So finally, Pete calls on the phone, and we find out, Matt, that the call wasn't about Mr. Mercedes at all. In fact, if you think about it, that would be kind of completely illogical. Which cases was he the closest to solving? It was not this one, but I think this accurately represents Bill's state of mind, right? He's all about the Mercedes killer, and so he just assumes that this must be related to that, but it's not. It turns out that the wife killer, Donnie Davis, the person that they thought they were going to get his DNA for and bust him for killing his wife, is also Turnpike Joe, the serial killer. There's two things to talk about here. Matt. Well, the first one, I think this is a really fun play off of a common trope in these detective stories. There's this thing in a lot of these stories, which I think the film Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, great movie, wonderfully shines a light on, is the idea that in these books there's sometimes two cases, and these two cases are being worked and they're separate cases, but at some point someone realizes that both cases are the same case, and it's this great twist in the story. In the 11th hour of the story is like, oh, these are same case, it's the same person, it's all tying together. And I love that happens here in this book still, but it's just not the case we care about. It's just like the backgrounded cases that were established but weren't the main concern of the thrust of the story. So he's like still checking that trope box, but differently.
That is really funny. I didn't actually think about this as being that, but I think you're totally right.
The second one that I thought was interesting, though, is how they actually catch Davis, right? Because this isn't police work. At least not. It's not like hard detective work, right? Basically, what happens is Davis just walks in and confesses, not just to the murder of his wife, but then he also confesses to all the murders of the women on the turnpike as well. So we see Pete is like thrilled about this. It's his lucky day, right? This is, a gift from God, as I get to have these two unsolved cases off my board at the same time. And he would, Bill later says, like, in tricking Brady, that, oh, he's going to pin the Mercedes murder on him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Pete, like, nothing would make Pete happier than for all these three of these cases to be the same person, right? But I think the interesting thing about this is I don't think this would satisfy Bill. I don't think Bill's the type of person that this would make him happy. Bill likes the hunt. He likes the chase. He wants to find this guy through good, solid detective work, not have the guy show up and confess. And I think this, once again, we've talked about this before, but once again is drawing a line between Pete as a kind of surrogate of an active duty police officer, an active duty detective, and Bill, debt retire, like, not really part of that life anymore. And what matters to him versus what matters to an actual police detective.
Yeah, I think it's why him and Pete are, friendly, but they're not dear friends. It's that they probably never quite saw the job the same way.
Yeah.
That all makes a lot of sense. I found I'm probably just being paranoid and sort of like my trope detector is tuned too tight, but I'm like, is it going to turn out to be true that this guy not only murdered his wife, but also murdered all these women? Like, I know this is not at all central to the plot, but like, as soon as Pete told him that, I was like, the guy's probably had like just crazy, and he's admitting to things that he didn't do because he's crazy. But I don't know. I don't. I'm just confessing the thought I had in the moment, just in case I turn out to be right, and then I'll sound really smart. But it's probably not true. It's probably just he's a serial killer. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see.
We'll see.
So, knowing that he still has a case to work on, he calls back up Janie and heads with her to meet her mom. And the section ends with this: he leaves his house with no premonition that he won't be back. What?
Brady's probably going to burn his house down. I mean, I say that because I can't think of any other reason why he would never come back to his house unless he's going to die. And the Bill Hodges trilogy refers to Hodges' brother, Bill.
Oh, he's got a brother named also Bill?
Yeah, because why? How else would it be the Bill Hodges trilogy?
So in this scenario, two parents had a child. They named that child Bill, and then they had another separate child, and said also Bill.
Yeah, and then they both became detectives, because I'm pretty sure these are all like detective stories. So
right, yeah,
that's my second theory.
Matt, you're overthinking this.
Okay.
Essentially what this is just he's not going to spend the night at his house because he's going to go bang this hot 44-year-old.
Oh, so it's not saying he'll never be back. It's saying he won't be back today.
Yeah.
Well,
I think, but I do think this is fun because, like, King does this so often in his stories that I think you were right to jump to that conclusion, and he's kind of messing with you a bit here because all it is exactly what I said. So
I think I'm mildly irritated with Mr. King here, because I feel like the literal reading of this is that he'll never be back to this house. Okay, all right.
Matt, he goes home the next day.
I don't remember that happening.
All right. So he heads out to meet with Elizabeth Wharton, who we see here is in really rough shape, Matt. And I think it's not surprising that she doesn't make it through this chapter alive, but she does make it through this interview. And there's a lot of character work going on in this section. I love when Bill admits to her basically that he treated Olivia Trelawney bad. Like he's gotten to the point now where he's just being fully honest, not only to himself, but to other people, that I think we treated her unfairly. I think we messed up. And he's fully in that mode now. And I think he's not ready to definitively conclude that she did not actually leave her keys in the ignition. But he's really close. And I think by the end of this week's reading, we'll basically be there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We also learned from Elizabeth that Ollie's pen pal made her stop taking her antidepressants, and confirms she basically echoes the sentiment we've heard, which is just there's no way this woman, this is my daughter, I know her, she would have never ever 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 left her keys in the car. So
yeah. And I think one thing that makes us like Bill Hodges is that he admits to this woman that he thinks they were wrong, rather than just, admitting it to himself and feeling bad silently in his own mind. It makes him seem more brave and upstanding.
Yeah, and he doesn't get defensive. Like one thing that she says to him when she recognizes him is like, "Oh, you were the nice one, not like that other one." That talking about Pete, and how that Olivia said to her mother that every time she looked at Pete, she could see him laughing at her behind his eyes. And his reaction to that is like, "No, that's not what he was doing." His reaction is shame and anger that they didn't do their job sufficiently. They messed up. They had presuppositions that influenced the way they felt about this woman and the way they reacted to her, and partially led to her death. And he's just fully admitting that to himself now. It's a big deal.
Yeah, he has quite a capacity for guilt, even when maybe he doesn't need to feel that much guilt. I think he takes it on himself anyway.
Yeah. We also get one more kernel here, Matt. This idea that she still would have not committed suicide if it weren't for the ghosts of the victims talking to her, the baby and the mother of the baby talking to her, telling her, "Why did you do this? How could you do this? How could you let this guy kill me?" So the text doesn't like definitively say what this is, Matt, right? Like, but I think it's because it doesn't have to. It's pretty clear Brady Hartsfield has installed something on her computer or in her network that is allowing devices to make noise and talk to her and freak her out. And I think we have to, at this point, we know almost everything we need to know about like the ways in which Brady talked Olivia into committing suicide.
Yeah.
Do you think this is the work of a mad genius? Like, is it like, do you need to be incredibly smart and impressive to make a woman like Olivia commit suicide? Or is what seemed like, oh man, he must have really understood this woman and known how to get at her. And like, to me personally, it just seems like the more we learn about how he went about this, the less kind of impressive,
right,
is a weird word to say, but I think it's true. It seems like this whole thing was to me.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to be one note here, but I'm going to reference Silence of the Lambs yet again, because I think like the standard archetype is like, before we knew this guy, we were kind of like, is he like a Hannibal Lecter type where he can get in somebody's head and push their buttons and really understand them? And he has this tremendous darkness, but also this tremendous insight that he can use against people. And I think I just agree with what you're saying now, which is like, no, he's intelligent, but he's not Hannibal Lecter. The methods that he employed were not really due to having some extreme insight. It was more just kind of pushing buttons that plausibly would have made a person feel really bad until it pushed an already kind of wobbly person over the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the important thing. She was already a mentally unwell person. She was on antidepressants already. The city did a good job in helping her with this without his input, right? And then it's stuff like he implanted a virus into her computer that made the ghosts of the people she killed talk to her. It's like, that's not, I mean, it's not that that's not clever, but it's like, that's not like smart and intellectual. Like it's very blunt, and it makes you think back at the letter he sent Kermit. Oh, that's the first time I've called him Kermit. That's weird. I don't know why I did that. That's his name, but I don't know why I did that. The letter he sent Bill, and how the methods of like trying to get him to like prod toward suicide were like painfully obvious.
Yeah,
it's just like,
it was like, hey, kill yourself.
Basically, right? And it's just like, I mean, I'm not, and again, like, he manipulated her into getting off her antidepressants by like building this caricature of himself and basically saying, well, I was on antidepressants and I got off them and now I feel better. But yeah, I mean, I want to rip this guy down as much as possible and just be like, I think you're absolutely, the Hannibal Lecter comparison is perfect, because that is the assumption you make, and he's definitely not that.
Yeah, I think convincing her to go off her antidepressants was like a smart, play, right? But like the virus thing just sounds like an unnecessary risk. That's what bothers me about it. Is it's like okay, so if anybody ever bothered to look into her computer, they would find this weird, custom made virus that has this really unusual behavior. I don't, I don't even know how you would do that.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me think it's not necessarily the best thing to have done. I mean, at the very least, it's like somebody had access to this computer. Okay, that's a short list of people.
Yep. And you can kind of almost close your eyes and imagine exactly how this played out, right? You can, knowing what we know about Brady now, like he successfully gets her off the antidepressants. He's goading her. Perhaps he's the one writing murderer or whatever on in graffiti, or maybe he didn't do that part, whatever. But then like she's not killing herself, right? And it's driving him insane. And so what does he do? He does something rash. He ups the ante and takes a risk, and that risk, I think you're right, is going to, the implication we leave this chapter with is that he's going to have Jerome come check out this computer and find out exactly what's on there that shows what was done. And I think you're right, narrows the list of suspects down considerably. So yeah.
So there's one comment I wanted to make about the audiobook here for a second.
Okay.
Which is that I actually just checked because in the back of my mind, I had this thought of like, is this two audiobook readers? And the reason I say that is the audiobook reader does like a very, so for Hodges, it's like your gruff, hard-boiled detective is very sort of low and growly. And then for Brady, interestingly, it's actually like a much higher, more like almost like boyish register. It would almost make you think that Brady was, a teenager, if you didn't know any better, just from like the voice. There's almost a childish intonation and speech pattern, and there's an overwhelming sort of childishness to the affect, and I wonder how much that's kind of affecting my perception of Brady as a character. This is just a thought that kind of occurred to me as we were talking here, and I kind of realized like it's a very distinctive thing the audiobook reader is doing. So,
who is, by the way, Will Patton, the actor, who I think has done other King audiobooks as well.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I enjoy his work here. I just thought it was worth, especially as we're kind of talking about this. Interesting.
But that, I mean, like that's a directorial choice in the audiobook that I think is probably motivated by the director and the voice actors read on the material. So I think that feels correct. Like you're saying, you're pinging off a thing that the audiobook specifically is doing, but I think you're supposed to.
Yeah, right. Like it's not like I'm saying the audiobook is injecting this perception that is like doesn't fit with the text. I think it's more just the audiobook is emphasizing this element.
Yeah. All right, so we head back with Brady as he's driving around the town in his ice cream truck, just yelling at Bill for ignoring him. We see he chats with a couple of middle schoolers, and then he attacks one of them. This is like pretty like non-subtle stuff here, but like I think King is doing a great job of very specifically and broadly showing how Brady is deteriorating, right? Like he does this thing where this kid pisses him off, so he does this famous like, your shoes untied trick. The kid looks down and he means to just boop him with his finger, only he flicks far, far, far too hard, leaving a mark on the kid and just showing. I mean, this is a perfect encapsulation of his deterioration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The mask is slipping.
Mm-hmm. And while Brady is out assaulting children, our good old Det Ret here is making some. He drives Janie home and then finds himself kissing her suddenly. Shocking Bill and us. She kisses him back. And then one thing leads to another. She's on top this time, though, Matt, because, well, he's old and fat. But don't you worry, she gets hers. I love I love this whole scene, Matt. I think it's wonderful and funny. Like, I stay still. I said, next time you can move all you want, but this is mine. Freaking dames. You know what I mean?
Dames.
Dames.
Well, she has the thing for big guys, which, good for her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I love this whole thing. I love this whole thing. This is obviously very much in line with the standard trope that Janie is fitting in these type of stories, right? We talked about this last week. And we know it's a trope, by the way, because for the first time in the story, our characters are directly referencing the fact that they're in a detective story and talking about which roles in a detective story they would be playing. Janie is, as we said last week, like the vixen who comes to the detective for help, but ends up having ulterior motives and perhaps uses her sexy wiles to convince the detective to do what she wants. It ends up that she's not quite as innocent as she first appeared, and all these things we're pinging off of here. But it doesn't feel like Janie's actually operating on any of that, right? It just feels like she's just a lady that hadn't had sex in a while and liked Bill because he's smart and kind and all the good things.
Just wants to sleep with the good detective. That's all. I agree that there's I'm just not feeling. I would be very surprised and maybe even mildly off put if it turned out that somehow she's involved. I mean, I think part of it is just like how could she possibly be involved? Like we know she's not, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I will say generally, like, I do not think the story is like going to do like a last minute switcheroo on you in that regard. I think we're just literally establishing the tropes in order to kind of show specifically how we're like subverting them, I think.
Yeah.
The one thing I did want to point out here is that while this whole thing is going on, Brady is out driving. We've learned that when Brady is feeling particularly down, he likes to retrace the route of his stolen Mercedes into his murder spree. But when he gets to Olivia's house, currently Janie's house, he is shocked to find Bill's car out front. And he's like, oh, fuck. What's going on here? Why is he talking to her? Is he hunting? This is not good. This is not the way I want things to go. And he freaks out a little bit here.
Yeah.
Realizing his plan is not working.
Yep. It's actually very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. And I like how he specifically is like, there's no way he'll be boffing her. I think he uses the word boff, which is delightful.
It's funny. It's funny because I can't help but parallel this to the moment when, or rather the moments where Hodges repeatedly overlooks the ice cream man, where it's like, in this instance, you have this character, like the correct deduction sort of occurs to him and he dismisses it. I can't help but see that as a kind of paralleling of the two characters. I know this is very like minor, but I just thought it was really interesting that both of them in short succession, they had a correct deduction pop into their head, but then they kind of waved it away as just like, nah, can't be that.
Yeah, no, I think that's there for sure. I think I like that. Okay. But we'll see which one is able to figure it out first, because I think one thing we're about to talk about here is that after in the post-coital glow, Bill decides to come clean with Janie about everything, right? He tells her about the letter that he got sent. He tells her like why he was involved in this case to begin with. He gives her everything, and that as we talked about with Jerome last week, that kind of brings her into it in a way that now she could also be in danger, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if Brady does figure out what's going on between them, suddenly she's an avenue for him to explore his rage.
Yeah, we're sort of raising the stakes in an organic way.
Yeah. So in this moment, she asks Bill to profile Brady, and the fun of, as you said, the fun of the dramatic irony here is that we get to see Bill just like fucking nail this, right? Like he just nails everything. His age, he's still living with his parents, the relationship with his mother, the weird sex stuff that he basically catches that everything in the letter about the specific sex stuff was probably bullshit, but that doesn't mean that there's not weird sex stuff here because, well, Matt, this is literature, and that means there's always weird sex stuff.
That's right. That's right.
And I love this part in particular. He's broken, Hodges says simply, and evil, like an apple that looks okay on the outside, but when you cut it open, it's black and full of worms. Evil, she says, almost sighing the word. Love that. I mean, yeah. I every time I see the word evil used in a King novel, I'm going to pull it out for us to talk about here because I think that word is very specific, and King is kind of consistently exploring what evil is. And here, once again, we see it's not this great, dark, nebulous, prim monster. Yeah. It's just mundanity.
Right. It's not even particularly impressive when you're in his head. It's very refreshing, and I just matter of fact the way Hodges uses it. Right, like it's not like this is part of some big speech either. Wait a second. Is that an adverb?
What?
Hodges says simply. The fact that Hodges says it simply, I think, is emphasizing that it is like, yeah, it's just the reality of it. He's evil. It's not. Let's not make it a grand thing. Evil is not grand. Evil is mundane. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Bill tells Janie how he's going to proceed on Debbie's blue umbrella, how he plans on using the Turnpike Joe confession to rile up Brady even more. And there's two things here I want to kind of talk about with you, Matt. So the first is this line here: with no police resources to call on, I see it as my best way forward. And it's fine with him because it's the way he wants to go forward. And then there's this other line right here. Given his druthers, he wouldn't involve Jerome Robinson any more than he already has here. But if he's going to follow up on old Mrs. Wharton's parting shot, he may have to. He knows half a dozen cops with Jerome's computer savvy and can't call on a single one of them. Okay, Matt. So, while it's true that we both very much want our retired detective to continue investigating this thing on his own, because we like him, we want to see him succeed, and he's doing a pretty good job so far. At what point are we as readers supposed to start going, hey, Bill, maybe you should go to the cops now? Because, like, these are two specific instances of like, oh, the police have the exact resources necessary to handle these particular things. And that way I wouldn't have to involve a child. And I wouldn't have to specifically egg on a murderer to rile him up to force him to make mistakes, right? Like, I'm just thinking out loud here, Matt. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like for me it was last week when Brady conceived of the idea to poison the dog, and I was like, okay, but you've Hodges has already sort of unwittingly exposed the kid to serious danger and being a target, so he's already crossed the line. Emotionally speaking, at this point, though, I'm too invested in Hodges' success as an individual, as a character. So I'm just like he can't like he hasn't resolved his plot. Like yes, rationally for the sake of like catching the killer and etc., he should throw it over to the cops, but he needs this for himself, and you want it for him. And I'm just too invested in the character, right? Which is like just good writing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, and I agree with you. I just wonder, are we supposed to feel concerned about the people around him in this? Like that, like he's continually making these choices, and we're being told, like, it's one thing to say like the only person that had the computer skills to hack this computer to figure out what's going on is Jerome, but the text specifically points out he knows half a dozen cops that have the exact same computer savvy Jerome has, that would be able to do this, that are trained professionals, that know how to handle this, that are not children. But he can't call on them, so he can't use them, so he has to use this kid.
Yeah.
It's definitely a part of me that goes like, oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, it is a little self-justifying. I agree. There's something very unusual about this book, though, that in one sense, we've talked about it every week because it's the core of the book. In another sense, I don't know that we've ever specified like that this is unusual specifically, which is the idea that the cop is coming after the killer and the killer is coming after the cop. Like, it's not like this is the first time this has ever happened, obviously, but usually in detective fiction, it's like the killer has killed someone and will kill again. And there's that, maybe some other victim that they're going after. And we're worried about this other victim or this other crime they're going to commit. And the detective is trying to stop that from happening. But in this case, the crime that they're trying to stop from happening is Brady's own obsession with Hodges himself. So it's kind of this loop. And of course, Brady, you then begin to worry the actions Hodges take begin to put other people in his own life in danger. So the stakes become not just escalated, but like tightened and sort of focused. And I don't know. I like, this is in one sense an obvious thing to say about this book because that's just the book. But in another, I don't know that we've laid it out like that before.
Yeah, I think I think you're right, and I think it's good to lay it out that way. The other thing I thought about while you were saying that is, in a lot of times these stories where like the private detective has to go outside the police force, it's because of like a specific kind of corruption within the force that like, but here it's really just, and incompetence even feels like too strong of a word. Like, it's not necessarily that the police are corrupt and incompetent. It's just that like Bill's better than them at these things. So like, we're not making this commentary on that like the only way to solve crimes like this is to go outside the law. It's just like, oh no, this guy is just in particular really, really good at this particular thing.
Yeah. Totally right. Like, I think your vibe is, emotionally speaking, less like, oh man, Hodges should really turn this over to the cops, because you're aware that he's better than them. If anything, you're just like, he shouldn't have retired.
Yeah. So Brady returns home after his evening of mindless wandering, and he continues to lose it. He finds his mom has left a lasagna in the oven, burning it horribly and coming very close to burning the whole building down. And once again, he thinks about just killing her, but instead heads downstairs to find a message from Bill waiting for him.
So I may be off here, but I feel like this is the second beat of a 3-beat where he keeps coming home and finding like some kind of cooking related incident has happened. And I feel like this is the second time, and the third time is obviously finding the cooked hamburger meat in the pan.
I think you're onto something there. Although I will say, I think this is the first time.
Okay.
So the second beat is the tuna salad she makes for him, which she does as kind of a makeup for this event. So
got it. Yeah. So I
just actually had him out of order.
I think I did just have him out of order. Yeah. I think you're right. Cool.
So once again, Matt, we won't read it, but Bill's message here is just awesome. Just managing to completely eviscerate Brady. He makes up like the valet key is like, you would have known about the valet key that doesn't exist. He subtly hints about the Turnpike Joe evidence without actually even saying it. So he allows Brady to figure it out on his own. It's so good, man. It's really delightful to read.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love it so much. It made me so happy.
I also love the smiley face, and like it works. You know, the inclusion of the smiley face was like just like, oh, this is gonna really piss him off, and it does. It exactly the way he wanted it to piss him off. It pissed him off. It's just perfect.
Yeah, it's so perfect, and like seeing it from Brady's perspective and like seeing his rage is so satisfying.
Yeah, and we see here that he loses it. He messages Bill back right away. He doesn't bother to read it over. He doesn't bother to put it in the voice that he had in the past. He doesn't even bother to spell check. All Brady's careful planning is gone, and he's just working on emotion here. And we get this little bit of information, this new beat here. he says, okay, the key wasn't in the ignition, but it was no valet key. It was a spare in the glove compartment. And how I unlocked the car is for you to figure out, fuckface. But that's basically confirmation on what we possibly expected here, right?
Uh-huh.
That not only did she not leave the keys in the car, but that the idea of the glove compartment spare that Jerome posited just seems to be an accurate thing, unless he's lying here. But this doesn't seem like
No.
at this point, it doesn't make sense for Brady to be lying.
No, especially with how enraged he is. He's desperately trying to prove that it was actually him.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost up to the point of confessing that the way he got into the car was, having some kind of device, because he says he highlights that as the core mystery, which then just draws the detective's attention to it, obviously.
Yeah. Which is, of course, like the next thing Bill figures out, or at least gets a hypothesis for, which is great.
Exactly.
So we get to see Bill's reaction to this message, and it's perfect. Like, he's really happy about it. He's reeling in his fish a bit of a time. He writes back right away, but again, we're not able to see what that message is until Brady sees it. Then he says goodbye to Janie with promises of more time to come, and then heads home. Matt, he goes back to his house.
Yep. Goes back to his house.
He goes, so you freaked out for nothing,
which is totally fine. Yeah.
He does get his notice that he's got calls on his cell phone because he left his cell phone in his glove compartment. And so he's got several messages from Jerome, who says that he needs to meet with him because he thinks he's figured out how Mr. Mercedes got into the car, which is fitting because Brady just as you said, sent him that mystery.
Just the idea of leaving your cell phone in the glove compartment of your car overnight gives me severe anxiety.
I completely agree. It is not only so very 2014, I guess it's technically 2010 or 2011, right? Of Bill, but also just incredibly boomer of him, right?
Like, exactly. Yeah.
I would never do that. In fact, I have realized I left my headphones in my car and gone into my garage at 2 a.m. because I was laying in bed going like, oh, well, then they're not gonna be charged and they might die while I'm at work tomorrow, so I have to go get them on the charger. So no, absolutely no way.
Only reasonable. So when he picks up the phone, this is related to what we were just talking about. When he picks up the phone and sees that he has all these missed calls or messages, I suppose, my first horrified thought was that like the timeline between Brady and Hodges had become kind of unsynchronized, and Jerome is calling him to tell him that his dog is dying horribly of being poisoned.
Oh man.
And it didn't help that like the voice actor takes on this morose tone for Jerome when he calls him here. But no, it's of course nothing to do with that at all.
Yeah. Well, in this case, I'm very happy you were just completely wrong.
Yes. It's been happening a lot lately.
So he meets with Jerome, who tells Bill about PKE, aka passive keyless entry. Also psychokinetic energy if you're a Ghostbuster.
That's right.
PKE meter. Yeah. So basically, this is, you press a button on your keys, it locks your car. You press a button on your keys, it unlocks your car. We all have these things. And if you're reading this book right now and like freaking out about this, the security around this has gotten a lot better since it was first introduced. I think it was also like probably already pretty good in 2014 to mostly prevent what happens here in this book. But, whatever. As Jerome astutely says in this section, anything made by a man can also be unlocked by a man. That's just kind of the way we work. But essentially what we're told here is that you have a device that sniffs the signal to a car and can save it. It detects what that correct signal is that unlocks the car and can save it and then repeat it a little bit later. You have to be very close, but it can do it. The book doesn't actually go right ahead and say this, Matt, but we can kind of assume at this point that this is just what thing number 2 is and does, right?
Yeah, I think I've been assuming that for some time, honestly.
Sure.
Yeah.
We had a small tangent, but we had a listener who is one of our delightful listeners that listens to every episode, but has not read the books in question. And after like the very first episode, they were like, I think I have a theory on what's going on here. I think he's using some sort of device to unlock the car.
That's hilarious.
And like, I felt bad because nobody responded to them because he was just right, but like nobody wanted to say it because it hadn't been fully revealed yet. I got a good chuckle out of that.
That's really funny. Yeah, I didn't see that because I kind of avoid reading certain venues, but yeah, that's great. Yeah, you know what's funny is I really don't know how like car remotes work. Like if you told me that they were all easily hackable, I would be like, yeah, makes sense. Because I just don't. But like, I mean, I know it's a radio signal, but I'm like, okay, but that seems like that would make it really easy to just copy and reuse. So they've got to have some other layer of something in there, like a call and response between the key and the car or something, right? Like signals going back and forth. I don't know is the truth. I'm just like wonder. I should look into this. I will. I'll look into this.
Yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, it's any like, you know, information is exchanged all the time, and there is encryption methods, and there's ways that both sides are checking for validity. And this is a less complicated way of that. But I think the thing Jerome mentioned specifically here is that they just cycle the signal, right? So it's not the same signal every time. So even if you sniff the signal today, it's not going to be the one that works tomorrow. It's just kind of rotating. There are ways to make this more secure. Those ways are employed. You know, I think if you maybe spend a whole lot of money and get a very complicated device, you could maybe eventually figure out a way around this. But it's mostly you can feel pretty confident that people can't just walk up with a radio device and unlock your car.
Sure. So it's funny. I'm only now remembering that it was in early 2010s, late aughts that like I would just always have the worst problems with my car and its key specifically, where like either the battery and the key would run out or something, and it would just be like I can't unlock the car, and when I do unlock the car, I can't start the car, even though I have the key. But it's like something to do with the key and the battery and the two systems not wanting to talk to each other anymore. And I distinctly remember like I had to like get someone to come pick me up one time because my car wouldn't start because my key wouldn't talk to my car. And this seems stupid, and it hasn't happened to me since I got a newer car. But yeah, I'm just remembering the inherent trauma and drama of cars and their keys in that period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect system. It breaks sometimes, and so we put more and more computers into our car. We're just more vectors for failure, for sure.
True.
All right, so I wanted to talk about this part a little bit. Jerome says to him, "There's stuff that people who work at car dealerships don't talk about, Mr. Hodges. They don't lie exactly. They just banish it from their minds. Like how airbag deployment can save your life, but also drive your glasses into your eyes and blind you. The high rollover rate of some SUVs, or how easy it is to steal a PKE signal. But the auto theft guys must be hip, right? I mean, they must. The dirty truth is Hodges doesn't know. He should, but he doesn't." So this is like the undercurrent of this whole story so far has been this slow realization of Detective Bill Hodges that he did a shitty job on this case when he was working it, that there were things that they didn't check up on, that like, I think he says here, yeah, we might have gotten a memo from the auto theft guys, but we didn't read it. We were busy, working on 5 hours of sleep, and the cases piling up and all these, mundanities of everyday work kind of blinded them from the things that could have unlocked some of this for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's good to see him, acknowledging this once again, right?
Yeah.
It's a good trait.
So Hodges also recognizes here that he has directly put Jerome and his family in the path of a crazy murderer. Oops. Bill takes that information and decides to come clean with Jerome, to tell him everything to kind of bring him in, as it were. I think the important thing that I mentioned here is just that, like, through his storytelling, King has made it pretty clear that, like, the coming clean to your quartet moments are very, very important to the safety of you and your quartet, right? Like, this idea that he values in his character forthrightness and honesty, and when characters are lying to each other, that is universally seen as a bad, dangerous thing, even if it's like lying to protect. That's not good enough, and so this is probably a moment that feels pretty good, right? Maybe not concerned here, but more relieved, possibly.
Yeah, I think it gives us a feeling of relief. Like, I think it is the responsible thing to do to, like, if he's going to bring Jerome in on things, then he should bring him in all the way so that Jerome can be fully informed and not get caught off guard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Like, you can't bring this kid in to help with one thing and then be like, oh, but no, it's not safe enough for you. You got to stay back. And yeah, it just
yeah.
Can't have it both ways.
Another thing that occurred to me at around this point is just like the reason why, we object to him bringing in Jerome is that we already know that Brady hates Jerome, but that's privileged, reader knowledge. Hodges has very little reason to suspect this. And so I think there's a case to be made that maybe I was a little too hard on him previously and like, oh, wow, you're bringing the kid into it. It's like, well, he doesn't think he's bringing the kid into it. He thinks he's just getting a little bit of IT help. It's only because we know Brady's mind that we know he's effectively bringing the kid into it.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think at this point he's kind of realized it though, right? Like, he sees Jerome's sister go to the convenience store the very convenience store that Brady said, oh, this is the perfect place to poison her dog at. We see her head there. He makes sure that the dog comes too. And like, definitely like the first time you read this, I think you're like, oh, this is when the dog's going to get poisoned, right?
Yes,
like,
I was.
This is it.
I was thinking that and was expecting that, like, the next time we go to Brady, we're going to see that happen. Mm-hmm. And it's close to what happens.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, so we do cut back to Brady, but it is not him poisoning the dog. In fact, we see him acting more rash. He's on a call to help out a bakery with their computer problems, and then he heads to buy some Gopher Go from Home Depot, which I know what you're thinking right now, Matt. Didn't he do that already? Yeah, he did, but he ordered it on the internet and he has to wait for shipping. But he can't do that anymore. He can't wait the 2 days it's going to take for the shipping to happen. So instead, he goes and buys it himself, something that he acknowledges is insanely risky, but he just can't help himself. I just want to let's remind ourselves that the car that Brady is doing this errand in is his lime green VW Beetle that he's taking from his job because he's on a service call.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
but he's just paying cash because he's not that insane, right?
Right. That's yeah, definitely when somebody pays with cash, that's less memorable and remarkable than paying with a card. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is again a perfect encapsulation of he's losing it and he's making mistakes here and he's being memorable.
He's being memorable. He's yeah, exactly.
So back in the car, Brady maps out his plan. First, he's going to kill the dog still for some reason. Then he's going to kill Bill. Then something big and grand and explosive. Brady hears about the boy band Round Here are having a concert at the Cultural Arts Complex here in town. That's a room that's going to fit thousands and thousands of people and a perfect place for his grand finale. And so now we're escalated, right? You said a little bit earlier that this is a cat and mouse game where both the cat and mouse are hunting each other. But now we've moved on to something a little bit more serious, right? That not only is he trying to prevent Brady from killing himself, killing Bill rather, but he's also planning another thing that's going to make the Mercedes killings look small.
Yeah. Right, which makes sense because we kind of introduced this guy as like a spree killer, mass murderer type guy. So absolutely makes sense. I will say I care more about, Bill and Jerome's dog than I care about a bunch of people in a stadium because like that's the way the fiction is wired, right? I actually those are real characters. So
Yeah. Especially when they're fans of a boy band. I mean,
yeah.
you know?
So that's I was gonna say, like, who cares, right? No. Is this a real boy band, by the way?
No.
Okay, I was just wondering because I guess you don't want to have the association of real boy band with suicide bomber.
Yeah, probably not. No.
It's probably wise.
Yeah. The question I have for you, Matt, and this is not, I don't want to say like, this is what I think. I think this is a fun question to pose. Is Brady responsible for this escalation of violence here by winding up Brady the way he has?
So, I mean, you could make a case, but I'm going to sort of say not really. Like if I were going to, if this were my English class essay, I would, my thesis would be no, because like, I think it's just a matter of time before Brady was going to try to outdo himself again. He has these compulsions persistently. He clearly acts on these compulsions because he committed the Mercedes massacre.
Mm-hmm.
He is driven by his emotions. So it might have been later, it might have happened later, but I feel like Brady was going to do something on the order of the Mercedes killings, if not more, eventually. So hard for me to hold Hodges responsible for that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I like. There's also a part of me that if this letter was sent to Bill Hodges' regular debt, not debt ret,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he probably would be handling this case in a similar manner while on the force. Like he probably would still be trying to wind him up and make him make mistakes. So yeah, I mean, it's just like this is the way to do this, and to say he's responsible for it is, yeah, I don't think that holds much water.
No, I agree.
I also really like this point. As he heads home, Hodges grabs lunch at a nearby deli, a salad instead of the loaded burger his stomach is rooting for. So, Matt, here we go. The key to becoming a healthier person is just have a pretty girl sleep with you.
Yeah.
No notes.
Oh, you were being sarcastic.
I mean,
look, I think we all know.
Let me think back about my life. No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think we all know the truth here.
Yeah. Bill wakes up from a nap to find a message from Janie, who lets him know that his mom had a stroke. She's asking for him to come be with her. He does decide to go with her, and finds out that in the between the phone call and him getting out to the hospital, she has passed away. And we learn that Janie's aunt and uncle and cousin Holly are on their way into town. Hey, we know that name.
I did the Leo pointing at the screen thing. I know that name.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about Holly in a bit, but
okay.
This is how she's getting introduced in the story. I'm wondering if you were like kind of like looking around, being like, everyone's talking about this Holly girl. Where is she?
I was
halfway through the book.
Like it's funny. Not that I had like a firm guess, but I was like, is Holly going to be like a research assistant? Like I sort of thought that Holly. So I know we still sort of know nothing about Holly, to be honest.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that the character of Jerome was going to be played by Holly. If that makes sense, like that Holly was going to be a tech savvy person who helps him solve cases. That's just
okay.
That's just what I assumed for whatever reason. But we got that's apparently not exactly correct. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will. I think we'll have a lot more to say about Holly in the future for sure.
Okay.
So we're back with Brady now, and see him heading to the store to collect some groceries and some ground beef to put into place Operation Kill Dog. He heads home, makes out with his mom, and then we get this part. Brady leaves the cop a brief one-sentence message. I'm going to fuck you up, Grandpa. Then he plays Resident Evil until his mother calls him to dinner. The tuna salad is great, and he has 2 helpings. Okay, so we've been having fun making fun of this incredibly dorky loser, but like, holy shit, man.
Uh-huh.
He gets online, leaves a nasty message for someone, plays Resident Evil, until mommy calls him to come eat his tuna salad for dinner.
Yeah, he's literally playing it in the basement, right? I mean, I think
Yes.
King knows what he's doing with these tropes that he's invoking. I also love that it's Resident Evil because you can imagine him being like, "This game is dark, just like my soul." It's yeah. It feels very childish, but once again, it was moments like this where the choice to have the voice acting associated with Brady be very sort of childish just felt perfectly correct.
Yeah. Can I also just like be a nerdy video game person for a minute here? If he's playing the original Resident Evil, that's a game that came out in the 90s. That's an old game, even by this point. This is honestly probably just like, I'm Stephen King. I don't know. Resident Evil. That sounds dark.
Yeah, get it? It's a metaphor.
Yeah. But what I like to think is that he's a loser that's only playing games that were released 20 years ago.
Because it's like nostalgic or yeah.
And if he's playing the most recent Resident Evil, he's playing Resident Evil 5, and that's not even that good a one. So
in the whenever this game came out, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this takes place in 2010,
this
right?
book came out
or 2011.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
So the sixth Resident Evil, which is awful, came out I think in 2012. So it was out by the time King was writing this book. But the point is, nerd. Got him.
I've never played any Resident Evil, but
oh, they're pretty good.
I think
I'd never play the first one because I'm cool, but
yeah, right.
No, it's a really good game. It's a really good game. It's just very funny that King is like, how do I make this guy seem like more of a loser? Well, he's gonna play video games in the basement until his mommy calls him for dinner.
Yep. And there's our second beat. Made some delicious tuna.
Yeah, she can cook, Matt, and she does cook on her own accord.
Now, look,
2 instances of that.
A nice tuna sandwich. I'm not going to say I would ever besmirch a really good tuna sandwich, but do you really call it cooking?
First of all, it's tuna salad.
Oh, sorry, tuna salad. That is a little bit more complicated. You're not just like
opening a can of tuna and slapping it on some bread, Matt. You got to mix in. You got the mayo.
Yeah.
Maybe some relish. You got to toast the bread, I would think, to make you got to have toasted bread.
You got to have toasted
tuna salad sandwich.
Maybe some sliced up eggs in there.
Also, this doesn't even say sandwich. I think I just assumed it could just be tuna salad. Which just eating like just raw dogging some tuna salad.
Just you, the tuna salad, and God.
I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe it's like a casserole. Man, we're thinking about this too much.
We are, but it's what we do.
Meanwhile, away from the tuna salad, Bill helps Janie with the paperwork of death, and then we get to meet Uncle Henry and Aunt Charlotte. I can't stress this enough, Matt. Just tremendously shitty people. Just the fucking worst. Just the worst.
It's fantastic.
And not in any kind of specific acute way. Like, just like, oh, y'all suck, huh?
No, it's wonderful.
We also meet Holly Gibney, daughter of Charlotte. And Matt, I think this is kind of what I wanted to talk to you about Holly today, since we don't have much more to say at this point. But you are in this pretty unique position reading this book, where unlike me, when I read this book, I did not know that Holly became this character that kind of takes hold of Stephen King, and he has spent much of the last 10 years thinking about her and writing about her. With that knowledge of who Holly eventually becomes in King's mind, this is a really interesting debut, right? Like, here's the introduction of Holly to our life. Holly, a spinster roughly Janie's age, but with none of Janie's looks. Holly Gibney never speaks above a mutter and seems to have a problem making eye contact. So that's what we get. That's all we get, essentially. She orders a cheeseburger, well done. But we can't even hear what she says because she's muttering so much. So I promise you will see more of Holly before this book is done. This is not it. But for now, what do you think about this?
It's interesting because I almost didn't parse that she was, in her 40s. based on her
Mm-hmm.
behavior, she
Yeah.
sort of behaves like a taciturn teenager who's just socially awkward. But it's like, no, she's a grown woman who this is the way she is.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be some, I don't know whether to call it a pathology, but it seems to be quite restrictive for her. It's not exactly what I was expecting at all, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I don't. It doesn't seem to be an obvious fit for the genre either, right? Like if it's like what, just thinking in terms of tropes, like what is the trope here? I'm
Yeah.
not
What
seeing
role
it.
is she playing? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I'm really interested to see. Like you said, there's like so little to go on here that I'm not going to bloviate about this anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not what I was expecting at all.
And again, the only reason you're noticing her at all is because I've primed you to notice her
Yes.
by
Right.
the pre-existing knowledge about Holly Gibney. So yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that wishes we hadn't done that. It's very difficult because I think you just knew about it, even if I hadn't specifically said anything. But it's part of me wishes I could have gotten your just kind of off the cuff reaction to this random character suddenly inserted in our story. That at the beginning seems to play no role and is just
Yeah.
kind of there.
Right. It seems so minor here that if she just happened to be one of the people who came to the funeral, I would just be like, yep,
Yeah.
never see her again. That would be fine. But
Mm-hmm.
that's apparently incorrect.
So they have a quiet dinner in which Bill kind of takes point in leading the conversation, telling stories. He's kind of the only one that's engaging with everyone. And then Bill and Janie go to sleep together, like for real. They just sleep. There's no deeds being done. How are you feeling about these two, Matt? We've come a far way really quickly. You know, like what
Mhm.
started as just like a fling to shake out some cobwebs in Janie's life because she's been with a man that she couldn't stand for a long time, it seems to be very quickly developing into something else, something more, something significant.
Yeah, right. And I mean, from Bill's side, he's clearly not mentally in a place where he's like, that was some nice lovemaking. Now back to my miserable life. Like he's going to have a hard time just kind of letting this go. I think this is
Mm-hmm.
clearly bringing some light and life back into his existence.
Do you like them together? Do you buy it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like he's attracted to her. She's
Mm-hmm.
smart and beautiful, and she's attracted to him because he's like her type and just like evidently very confident, charismatic, competent, and just attractive. And like you could see this being good for them. I think. Like there's nothing, put it the converse way, like there's nothing about it that strikes me as like, oh, this is doomed, this is just obviously doomed, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. Cool. So the next morning, Bill reads the threatening message from Brady and decides he's going to start carrying his gun again. He also requests that Janie not let her family onto Olivia's computer. This is what we talked about already. This is his plan, is to get Jerome in there to come check out the ghosts in the machine. But what I wanted to highlight was this part. Bill stops on the elevator on the way home and asks the question to Janie, like, did my line of questioning perhaps contribute to the fact that she had a stroke? And I love that this is said. There's no way to tell. She was very old, at least 7 years older than Aunt Charlotte, I think, and the constant pain beat her up pretty badly. Then, reluctantly, it could have played a part. Hodges runs his hand through his hastily combed hair, mussing it again. Ah, Jesus. Like, I love that we're doing this, Matt. I love that
Mhm.
we're having this moment of, like, Bill is very aware of his actions and what his actions are causing. And, like, I love that Janie's the type of character who's not going to sugarcoat it and be like, no,
Yeah.
no. I don't know. I just really
Right.
love this interaction on both sides.
Yeah, I was thinking of this moment earlier when we were talking about his willingness to sort of take blame for stuff that he doesn't strictly need to take blame for. Like he didn't even need to ask this question. He could have just
Yeah.
been like, you know, just doing my job. I got to ask people questions. But he doesn't want to harm people. He doesn't want to be responsible for that. And if he is, he doesn't react by flinching away from it. He reacts by taking responsibility. So
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. From here, we cut over to Brady, and after a long day of ice cream trucking, he comes home to find that, oops, turns out Mom does know about my mini fridge in the garage and has made herself a strychnine hamburger and eaten almost all of it. Miss Hartsfield is puking and dying, and her spine is locking up just like Brady said it would. It's horrifying, Matt. She's desperately asking her son to call 911, and Brady almost does it, but he can't, can he? Too many questions would be asked. Instead, he just goes downstairs, not even being willing to watch her die. Matt, this woman sucks, right? Like this is a woman who, like, horrible mother who has completely damaged her son, who probably was having incestual relationship with him as a child, and is absolutely a part of what made him this evil, fucked up person.
Mm-hmm.
But like, this is rough, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, like, to see any person die this way is rough. Like it really, the mumbling of Brady 911 really got to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is her son, and she's desperately calling out to her son for help,
mm-hmm.
and he just won't do anything.
Yeah. This is what we call a totally fucked up situation, for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I already hated him enough, but like the fact that he's so much of a chicken shit that he won't even, like, he won't like be there with her as she dies. He leaves her to die alone, to asphyxiate alone as her spine snaps. It's just,
mm-hmm.
man, fuck this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So Brady is now sitting alone in his basement, waiting for his mother to die, thinking about things. And what does he think? It made Brady think of an old saying: whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Is that the Peter principle? He goes online to find out. After some investigation, he discovers it's not the Peter principle, but Murphy's Law, named after a man named Edward Murphy. The guy made aircraft parts. Who knew? Matt, his fucking mom just died because he killed her.
Yeah.
And this is what he's thinking about?
Yeah. I thought this was a fantastic bit of writing. I mean, I guess like the whole page is really what I mean, but he goes from like actually being distressed because his mom is dying, and while he probably doesn't feel what you could comfortably call love, he kind of cares about her existence in his own weird way. Mm-hmm. And he's very distressed about it, and then he just like switches over to just like, Edward Murphy in like a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? Yeah, right.
Fucking monster. Yeah. So Brady now has a problem, though. He's got the body of his mother in his house, and what can he do with it? I don't know. I wish I had a freezer, he says. But he decides the perfect solution is to take it upstairs and just put it in bed. So that's what he's gonna do. I don't want to copy some of the shit that ends our chapter here in the book and talk about it, because it's absolutely vile. Like, that's what we can say. Like, his dragging his mother up to the bed, like her pants come down, and it's just disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. All of it. I hate him so much.
Yep. Let's just say that I don't want to think about where this is going. Let's just say that.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Let's just say the book wants to put certain possibilities in your mind, and I have no theories at all.
It's a wise time to be ignorant of theories. But we end this week's reading with Brady deciding that this isn't his fault. It's not his mistake. It's all Bill. Yeah, I mean, sure, like, the meat was because of me and I got it to kill this dog, but it's Bill's fault for winding me up. And so he begins to work on his schemes. And before he does that, of course, he leaves him another threatening message. He's saying, I'm going to fucking kill you. You won't even see it coming. You know, like, I understand that reads as ominous, and like, I get it, but like, I'm just like, in my mind is reading it in a Brady voice, and I'm just like, whatever, man, you fucking dork, you suck.
Yeah, right. Fully expect him to somehow get himself killed in his attempt to kill Hodges.
Yeah. All right, but that is Poisoned Bait. Did you expect a dead dog by the end of this chapter?
I did.
Do you still think there's a possibility of dead dog?
I think
Is he gonna like try again?
I think we're past dead dog. Actually, I think he's a lot more angry and less like patient, and it's become a lot less of a game. Also, like if all the hamburger meat is gone, then he'll need to acquire more poison, which just sounds like a sort of detour that I don't feel like this book is going to make.
Well, Matt, don't forget he's already got 2 bottles of Go for Go going to be arriving via mail any moment now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There is a backup supply of the poison, but I still kind of feel like we're past using it on dogs. That just feels like smaller stakes relative to kind of where we're at now with his mom being dead. But could happen. Could still happen, obviously.
Sure. Well, we will find out next week as we read the next chapter, which is actually our penultimate episode, which is wild to think of.
That is crazy, yeah.
Next week we will be reading a chapter called Call for the Dead.
Cool.
It's ominous.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Matt, let's get out of here. But before we do that, we do have discussion question answers to read. We got a lot of good answers to last week's discussion question. I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, the question was, who is your favorite hard-boiled detective in fiction and why? From BC Johnson, they mention Harry Dresden, but they also say they're going to go with Raymond Chandler's close to prototypical detective Philip Marlowe, star of The Big Sleep, The Lady in the Lake, and the absolutely perfect The Long Goodbye, and more. He has the best lines in noir fiction, including "Dead men are heavier than broken hearts" and "It was a blonde to make a bishop kick a hole in a stained glass window." Marlowe is clever, funny, a great detective, and gets the shit kicked out of him on the regular. But he always comes back to do the right thing, even when he wants nothing more than to be left alone in the dark with a bottle of 4 Roses. Honorable mention to Angel from the show Angel, a descendant of Philip Marlowe and Batman.
Now, I think you're going to shock the world when you say this, but you have not read any Raymond Chandler, right?
Correct.
This is upsetting. Yeah, we're going to fix this. Don't worry, folks. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm as upset as you are.
Yeah. Well, let's do it.
All right, next we have Baby Can You Dig Your Sam, who says, I love a good mystery, but I actually don't read a lot of mysteries. Although thanks to your recommendations, I have been reading a lot of ton of French lately. Yes. Well done, Sam. Well done. When I hear hard-boiled, I think noir. And my favorite noir is probably Eddie Valiant from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Bob Hoskins is picture perfect as the straight guy in Roger's loony antics, and he's dark, like real dark. He's a depressed, self-sabotaging alcoholic dealing not with the murder of his best friend and brother. But like all hard-boiled detectives, he never gives up until he finds his man. Unlike other hard-boiled detectives, he is able to emerge from the darkness to rebuild broken relationships and find his passion for life once again. Since you're also giving me the opportunity to go this route, I have to also mention Rian Johnson's directorial debut, Brick. This movie is brilliant, teen noir made accessible to millennials. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is picture perfect as our hero, and Lucas Haas is delicious as the drug-dealing Pin. Highly recommend Brick to Kingslingers fans everywhere.
Okay. Haven't seen that.
I have a confession.
Yes.
Neither have I. I've never seen Brick. Brick is the only Rian Johnson film I haven't seen. And
well. Look who comes crawling. No, I obviously haven't seen it either. Yeah, let's watch that. Let's watch Brick.
We should. I mean, one day I want to do a deconstructing Rian Johnson, because I want to have to talk about The Last Jedi again. As we all know, I just love talk about that movie.
That's fine. I have no problem.
The comments. We're reading the comments on that one. So great.
Well,
I think honestly, I think the reason I haven't seen Brick yet is because I'm like, oh, we're gonna do Rian Johnson one day, and then it'll be cool because it's the only movie of his I haven't seen. I'll get to see it right for the show, so I just haven't watched it.
Well, let's just do that then.
Sure.
Also, I just have to formally react to Roger Rabbit being mentioned, because that's like such a good movie. It's an underrated movie. It's a genius movie. It's one of my favorite movies. It's not just a silly little cartoon or whatever. It's like a really good movie. There you go.
And if you want to hear us talk more about that, we did a whole Doofcast episode on that movie, so you should check that out.
We did.
I agree with Matt. Very good movie.
Yep. Pierre Jane says, I'm going to recommend Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden, the hard-boiled private detective in Jim Butcher's series of supernatural pulp thrillers, The Dresden Files. They've been around for a while, but I recently started listening because James Marsters, Spike from Buffy, has recorded all the audiobooks. This series ticks all the boxes, finding out the killer at the end, a well-constructed magic system, noir atmosphere, and Spike reading sexy descriptions of long-legged femme fatales. As for the detective himself, Harry's a wizard. Ha, see what I did there? I do. He's got a tragic backstory. He has a weakness for a pretty dame in distress, and he wields power over the elements and summons fairies to do his dirty work. Did I mention Spike? Perry Jane says, the TV show was short-lived and terrible. Don't bother. And P.S., my 13-year-old says emojis are okay. Oh, thank God.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. Now we know. We're in the clear.
Yeah.
We can still use emojis.
I'll go back to using them in every single message that I send you.
You know, the Dresden Files is another one that like I feel like I should have read some of, and I just never have.
Yeah.
I feel like I would enjoy them a whole lot, but I've just never read them.
I've seen so many people talk glowingly about them, and I don't know why it never crossed my mind to read them, because like I like fantasy, I think, often, not always, and I like noir, so put those two things together, not a bad idea.
Yeah, maybe I'll listen to one since it's James Marsters. I like him.
Yeah.
All right, Talks You That says, there's one hard-boiled detective that I judge all others by: Sam Spade. The cynicism, the doggedness, the dry wit, coming away with the dame, the great one-liners. It's the thing that dreams are made of. I love it. Sadly, though, I have to foil your plan and not add any books to your list to read. Just watch The Maltese Falcon for Bogart's perfect take, and skip the short stories unless you're really into it and you're done. I have seen The Maltese Falcon. I love that movie very much. There was a television show that was released this year, I think, starring Clive Owen. That's a sequel to The Maltese Falcon, I think. I mean, I think it's about Sam Spade
Cool.
in France. I think it's called Monsieur Spade.
Okay, fun.
I didn't watch it, but I wanted to. Have you seen The Maltese Falcon? Why am I saying Falcon so weird?
I don't know the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, that's why. That's upsetting me.
Yeah,
because it starts with M and then is followed by Falcon.
Yeah. I think that is.
I'm mad at myself now.
That's probably where the Millennium Falcon came from, by the way. Like,
I mean, sure.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Well, maybe I have. I can't remember. Is the truth.
We have to do another blind spot series where we just watch incredibly popular, famous old movies, because I think you would legitimately enjoy the Maltese Falcon.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. Busy Dad 82 says, I love that we talked about the Roomba vacuum idea this week. As I was reading it, not only was it another piece of the grievance-based puzzle of his persona, but I had a very specific flashback to a teacher I had in the early 90s. Not only did this teacher claim to have had an idea for a car that ran on water, hydrogen, but he also claimed that he was the first to recognize that Africa and South America fit together and therefore must have moved. Let me repeat this. He claimed to have discovered plate tectonics. I was probably only 11, so I naturally believed this. But man, that guy was full of shit, just like Brady. So I mistakenly took this, even though it's not a discussion question answer, but I did find it to be an enjoyable comment. So thank you for your thoughts here.
Algorithm.
It's well, the algorithm doesn't work so well that it can tell what is an answer and what is not. I still have to do some filtering.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember there's some weird people out there. You encounter a lot of them when you're a kid for some reason,
Yeah. Just so we're clear, and I think ironically, I talked about this in the middle of a conversation yesterday or last week about Planet of the Apes. We discovered the fact that Africa and South America fit together like a long time ago. Like before we knew plate tectonics were a thing, someone looked at a map and said, huh.
Yeah. I think they probably even had like the weird fossil, the fossils that lined up between the two continents before they had an explanation for how that could have happened.
Yeah. The only thing that was stopping us was we didn't understand. Okay, so these land masses definitely moved. We're like, okay, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And we just didn't understand the continental plates yet.
Right. It still barely makes sense to me, and this is like my field, and it still barely makes sense to me because it's like, but they're so far away. They're so far away.
Well, it's called time, Matt.
I think it's just very difficult to really get your head around that span of time, you know?
Yeah.
Like
We're completely unequipped as mortal beings to think about that.
Yeah. Even just like 100 million years as a piece of time, you're just like, I can't even think about a million years. I can barely sort of conceive of the idea of 1,000 years, right? Anyway, cool.
Friedlock68 says Rust Cole from season 1 of True Detective is not only the greatest detective, but also the most interesting character on what many, including myself, would consider the greatest season in television history. If you've seen the show, you don't need an explanation. If you haven't, go watch it ASAP. You watched the first season of True Detective, right?
Via YouTube clips, I did.
That is not right.
I never quite fully watched it the correct way that people should watch shows.
I enjoy the show very much. I probably wouldn't go as far as Friedlock has gone here, and it's definitely not one of like my favorite television shows ever. It is very good though, and I agree. Rust Cole is a very great character. It's a good show. It's a very good show. All the seasons after it have been disappointing in one way or another. I think the latest True Detective Night Country that came out earlier this year was very good for a long time, and then very quickly stopped being good, in my opinion, as it wrapped up.
And you know, it's a pretty singular performance from McConaughey too. Like,
yeah,
very unusual, very interesting performance.
Very good. Need to rewatch that show.
Obi-Wan Martinez says some quick hits IRL crime drama. Idris Elba's John Luther from BBC's Luther, except no substitute. Sci-fi, Harrison Ford's Rick Deckard in Blade Runner. Comics, Hellboy from Mignola Comics. John Constantine in Hellblazer. And honorable mention to John Hartigan from SimCity. Fantasy, Sam Vimes from Terry Pratchett's Discworld.
I just want to say I wasn't laughing at the answer of Constantine. I was just laughing that Constantine has come up again after your random Constantine nonsense last week.
Yeah, he's definitely a noir detective. He's totally hard boiled. Mm-hmm. Boiled as hard as it boils.
No, these are good answers. I've actually never seen Luther. I hear Idris Elba is very, very good in this role, but I've never seen it.
Me neither.
Next, we have Bandit Panda 19, who says, hard not to think of Batman since his label is world's greatest detective. While some adaptations just rely on fun gags and Batman's only problem is to solve a riddle, there are some that delve a little deeper into the detective aspect. The modern video games do a great job of showing off bats putting a crime scene together to find clues, but they lack a real noir feel. In the books, Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb's The Long Halloween show a well-done, hard-boiled Batman detective story. In almost the fashion of King's Cycle of the Werewolf, the story is set up by holidays, and in each one, Batman is trying to solve the murders of an unknown killer named Holiday. The story is very mafia-focused, using the Falcone family as the driving force of the story. So much more fedora and trenchcoat story than Bam Pow story with two men in tights fighting each other. That's fun. Yeah. I like the detective aspect of Batman, and I tend to enjoy the stories that employ that. So maybe I'll check that out. It sounds fun.
Yeah, I haven't read the comic, obviously, but it is funny that this description, at least superficially, resembles the latest Batman film, The Batman. Where
I agree.
It centers around Halloween and the Falcone family. So, but both of those things probably was a inspiration for that movie, I would guess.
Are you going to watch the new Penguin show on HBO when it comes out?
I might give it I'll probably give it a try. I mean, I like what they're doing with that, with this particular instantiation of Batman. And I like Colin Farrell in absurd amounts of makeup. So
I just love that he's doing it, man. Just go for it.
Yeah. No,
you think when he originally signed on to the role, they were like, oh, by the way, we want to make a TV show. You're going to have to live in this makeup for a while.
No, I don't. I bet that came up later.
I mean, I'm sure they gave him a lot of money for it. He's happy.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. I really enjoy his performances. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Me too.
Even though I do like roll my eyes at like a TV spin-off of a comic book movie. Like it's very difficult to not roll my eyes at those things these days, but
right.
I hope it's good.
Yeah, I like him a lot. That counts for a lot. All right, Apocalypse Win 7 says, my favorite hardboiled detective is the 1-2 punch of Veronica and Keith Mars. This father-daughter detective agency investigates crimes both big and small, fighting against the deep-seated corruption that infests the well-to-do community of Neptune, California. The show sounds patently ridiculous on paper. A high schooler investigating high school crimes? What is this Encyclopedia Brown nonsense? But the show is carried by the talented cast and whip-smart writing. Kristen Bell and Enrico Colantoni in particular take dialogue that would sound cheesy in lesser hands and mold it into the pulpy, wry one-liners reminiscent of the best film noirs of old.
When I say that I love Veronica Mars, let me tell you that I love Veronica Mars. I got really into that show when it was coming out. I like discovered it randomly. I think it was after season 1 had finished, and someone was like, "Oh, you gotta watch this show. It's fun." And I like got like really into it. It's
cool.
It's a very fun show, and like the classic mystery of the week detective stuff, while also having like an ongoing plot line and some pretty great characters. It's a good show.
Awesome.
I think the last season is not good. I think it suffered from the problem of, okay, she graduated from high school and went to college. What do we do now? And they just never quite figured it out.
Yeah.
But at least the first season is very good. I think the second is good too.
Cool.
All right, last but not least, we have Draxus Eridar Lord, who says, as long as reporters are a type of detective, my favorite hard-boiled detective is Carl Kolchak, the Night Stalker. He investigates murders and looks for answers to questions others won't even ask. If you've never seen the show, it's basically a proto-X-Files. My episode recommendation is Horror in the Heights. You ever watched this show?
Nope.
Me neither. But you know what? You know what's cool about these recommendations? Is I can just watch one episode.
Yeah. A lot of good recommendations this week. A lot of stuff I had heard of, but never quite gotten around to. A lot of stuff I hadn't heard of. Really appreciate that.
There's so much examples of greatness in the genre that like it makes me sad that I don't know if I'll ever have time to check it all out, but definitely some stuff we need to focus on. I think we need to have a noir book on our book club at some point soon. I think the We Pick'em's coming up next month, and I think we're just going to be like we're doing it. So
yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone who sent those questions in. Those are really great, really fun. We got tons, by the way, Matt. We got tons on email, and so many people. So if the algorithm has abandoned you, I apologize. But we read them and enjoyed them.
We did.
All right. Next week's question, Matt. This is a weird one that you wrote on here. Like, it seems like you're just like fishing for like if people like incest or not.
I don't think I wrote that on there, Scott, but
so I was struggling for a discussion question, and I just wrote incest, yay or nay. And that's it. That's what we're asking.
That would be a good way of engaging with our audience. Yeah.
In all seriousness, what is the discussion question for this week?
So the discussion question is, so Brady inadvertently poisons his own mother this week. What's your favorite instance of accidental poisoning?
I thought we were going to do just general poisoning and then bonus points for oops poisoning.
Well, so yes, if no oops poisoning comes to mind for you, which is entirely plausible, then just generic poisoning, any poisoning, in fiction. Let's specify that.
Yeah, please don't confess to a crime. I don't want to have to deal with that.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
That would be distracting.
I do think there is like this general, I feel like this, and I haven't actually thought of specific examples quite yet, but I do think there are a lot of examples in fiction of this exact thing that happens in the story, which is like, I've got something to poison someone, and oops, someone I didn't want to have this got it. Like Thinner, right?
Yeah. Thinner's a good example. I wouldn't say Romeo and Juliet is a perfect example of this idea, but there is like Juliet is not supposed to get the poison and then gets the poison, and people.
That's not what happens.
That's basically what happened. We look, we all know how Romeo and Juliet ends. I don't need to repeat how Romeo and Juliet ends. Okay.
All right. Well, please give us your best examples. I think poisoning is a very interesting and fun kind of storytelling device. And we saw how it can go horribly wrong in Mr. Mercedes, but maybe there's other instances of it going horribly right.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's it for us this week on Kingslingers. Next week, we continue with another episode of Mr. Mercedes. We're going to be discussing chapter five, Call for the Dead.
Awesome. Remember, you can reach us via kingslingerspod@gmail.com, over on Twitter @kingslingerspod, and of course, over on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia.
And you need to head over to doofmedia.myshopify.com, where you can get the If You Podcast Me, Then Podcast Me mug, as well as a bunch of other things. Please keep an eye out there too, because I forgot to cut that great idea out of the show last week. So we have to move on it quickly before someone else steals it. So hopefully that will be there soon, as well as a bunch of other fun merch. So please check that out.
Yeah. And if you like our show, Kingslingers, and you want to support us, then please head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia. We've got a bunch of cool stuff over there, including a bonus podcast show where we talk about all kinds of Stephen King adaptations and adjacent works. I think we're due to release one of those roughly a week from now. So stay tuned.
Yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. Thank you for reminding me. I got to go watch those 2 episodes.
Me too.
But if you cannot afford to join the community right now, that is absolutely okay. Please help us by spreading the word, sending this podcast out to all the corners of the earth. And please also, if you haven't done it already, leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. This week's Spotlight review comes from VGB Cujo, who says, "A great companion piece to The Dark Tower. I have loved Stephen King since I was 11 years old, but never tackled The Dark Tower until this year. The Kingslingers are a joy to listen to along my Dark Tower journey. They're insightful, funny, and keep the conversation moving. I look forward to continuing down the beam as part of their extended quartet, and also listen to their coverage of some of my favorite works, like The Long Walk and It." Well, Cujo, that means you're probably not listening to this right now, but I hope you enjoy the rest of The Dark Tower and those 2 books, because I'm pretty proud of what we did on those 2 stories. I think those episodes turned out pretty good.
Me too. Yeah, I am looking forward to you getting there.
Yeah. And thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you, everyone who leaves those ratings and reviews. I found out that we have like 700 ratings on Spotify, which is a lot. Spotify doesn't let you write a review, but it does let people give stars, and we're sitting at 5 stars with like 750 reviews, which is
nice.
Just amazing. Thank you, everyone, for that.
Appreciate that.
You're the unsung heroes who don't get to be read aloud, but you're still doing work. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, folks, that is it. We've got 2 more episodes left in this book, so let's get moving on it. We'll see you right back here next week for more Mr. Mercedes. Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.